The Nature of True Prayer by F.L. Rawson, Chapter 4. Deny thyself and follow me. Deny that you are material. Jesus said, "If any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me." Luke 9:23. We used to think that this meant we had to give up many of the things we liked and make the best of our troubles. Deny thyself really means that we have to deny that we are material and realize that we are spiritual. St. Paul said, "For if a man think himself to be something when he is nothing, he deceiveth himself." Galatians 6:3. A man told me that in the British Museum, he had found some writings in Latin recording conversations between Jesus and John, believed to be the ancient records of the African church and authentic. In one conversation, John asks Jesus if there is a material body. Jesus answers no. John then asks Jesus if there is a material earth, a material creation. Jesus again replies no. The British Museum authorities know nothing of these records. The statements, however, are absolutely correct. I would be glad to have reference to them. Take up his cross daily means that we have to pray daily and deal mentally by true prayer with every difficulty. Follow me means that we have to follow him in thought to God. Then, one by one, we deny the existence of our difficulties, and after each denial, add a series of affirmations, the opposites of the trouble, the existence of which in heaven we have denied. When we then dwell upon the perfection of God's perfect world, the mist of matter thins and the human mind improves. While we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen, for the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. 2 Corinthians 4:18. The statement that the things which are seen are temporal is St. Paul's statement that they are not real. Scientifically, we know that anything which ceases to exist is not real, whatever it may appear to be. At one time, there was a group of mental workers in England calling themselves divine scientists. Their method of working was to keep all the evil thoughts out of their minds as far as they could by not thinking of them, and to dwell in thought on the good of the real world. Merely not thinking of the troubles is useless. It is the denial of their existence that is needed to give the temporary relief which is necessary, whilst by the affirmation we permanently change the mind so that the wrong thoughts have no effect. Realization of God, the only permanent healing. These divine scientists did not get on very well because, as I have pointed out, if a person is healed by the realization of God, by the affirmation of the highest possible good, this means that the cell in the subconscious mind that is liable to vibrate with the evil thoughts, the cause of the trouble, is completely purified and will not vibrate again with the thoughts, however often they come and however intense they may be. To do this is not easy, and some time will often elapse before any noticeable results are obtained. Usually, people get tired of waiting for results when they are trying a new method of healing and think that it is of no use unless they feel a benefit almost immediately. The denial, only temporary relief. The denial of the existence of the evil in heaven being mere temporary relief, the destruction of the thoughts that at the time are attacking, it is very easy to heal a person with the denial so that they are quite well for the time being. About a year or so ago, a patient came to me who had a bad growth, one of the rare forms, and it had pushed the eye right out of place. She had been operated on twice, and the surgeons could hold out no hope of any relief from another operation. A friend of hers had been healed by prayer, and she came and asked whether I would take her as a patient. I said that I would if she would give up the use of the material remedies she was then taking. She said she could not do this. She had not sufficient faith in God and still believed in matter. I then told her that under these circumstances, I could not take her as a patient. It may be said, this was rather cruel, was it not? No, we have to consider what our object is. It is the reduction of as much as possible of the evil that is going to attack humanity between now and the so-called end of the world, which is the end of all matter and its brood of sin, disease, suffering, and limitations. To do this, we have to give as many people as possible such an understanding of the truth that they themselves can commence not only to get themselves well and happy, but to free those around them from their troubles as well. When one takes a patient, this is the main object. Although, unless you heal them from their troubles for which they come for help, they, in some cases, are not sufficiently interested to work hard enough to obtain such a knowledge of truth that they can help others or even themselves. It is almost impossible to tell who are ready and who are not ready. A rough method of judging is whether they are willing to pay for the help they obtain, either by a monetary payment or by doing something themselves to help others. Those who are not willing even to give up their material remedies are certainly not sufficiently ready for truth themselves to make it worthwhile taking them as patients, unless the worker is not fully occupied with work himself. In the latter event, one can work chiefly so that the patient should gain sufficient knowledge of truth to give up remedies and rely upon God. I explained this to her and told her that I had far more patients coming to me than I could possibly take, and therefore I could not help her. She had been in terrible pain for a long time and was in such agony at the moment that I said I would give her a treatment against this. 3 days afterward, she called me again and said that she had had absolutely no pain whatsoever for 2.5 days after the treatment had been given, but that it had come back about 12 hours before just as badly as ever. She was, however, sufficiently satisfied by this proof of the existence of God and said that she would now be quite willing to give up all material remedies and rely solely upon prayer for her healing, as the doctors had been unable to relieve the pain. I think it required 6 treatments before the eye was back in position, and about another 6 treatments before she was well enough to be taken by one of my assistants. She had no pain from the time I gave her the second treatment, and before long, one could hardly see that anything had been the matter with her eye at all. In this case, it was the denial of the existence of pain in heaven when I gave the first treatment, which resulted in the thoughts causing the pain to cease for over 2 days. But it took more work before the mind was sufficiently changed by the affirmations so that no pain thoughts could again touch her. In the meantime, the use of the denial prevented her from feeling any pain, the pain thoughts being destroyed from day to day. Daily prayer. One should treat for oneself regularly, twice a day, morning and evening, just in the way that in the old days we used to pray morning and evening, for treatment is merely true prayer. But whereas in the old days we used to think that 5 or 6 minutes was quite sufficient, it will be found that one ought to treat for oneself at least a quarter of an hour each time. Praying regularly in this way enables a man more easily to reverse the wrong thoughts as they come into his mind. About 14 or 15 years ago, when I was being malpracticed on, as it is called by the so-called Christian Scientists, I used to have to pray for myself for 5 or 6 hours regularly every night. This was in addition to working as a rule for 10 or 12 others every day. The effect of this was that I never suffered in any way, never even having as much as a headache worth speaking of. I thought that I had to protect myself against their evil thoughts. I know now that all that I had to protect myself from was my own wrong thoughts, thinking they could harm me, whereas there is no power but that of God. The result of the attack was merely that I was helped to obtain a better knowledge of God and to lead a better life. This constant prayer, day after day, means a wonderful purification of the mind so that the evil can have comparatively little effect afterwards. the results of right thinking. The first result of learning how to think rightly, how to pray in the way taught and demonstrated by Jesus the Christ, is that we find an easy, scientific, and therefore certain method of getting rid of sin out of ourselves. The Lord shall deliver me from every evil work. 2 Timothy 55:18. Jesus pointed out that it was due to the action of the Holy Ghost that the prince of this world is judged. John 16:11. When a man sees, for instance, an angry man and turns in thought to heaven and realizes that there is no anger and thinks of the love in heaven, he is judging. That is to say, he separates the evil from the good in his mind in the way that a judge does in considering evidence. He that is spiritual judgeth all things. 1 Corinthians 2:15, namely, reverses every wrong thought. For the time is come that judgment must begin at the house of God. 1 Peter 4:17. The result of this judging or reversing the wrong thoughts is that the evil thoughts making the man angry cease their apparent existence and the man stops being angry. Judgment is therefore the destruction of evil. And in some half of the passages in the Bible where the word occurs, it is used with this meaning. Secondly, if you get your realization clear enough, you can heal a man instantaneously of any kind of sin and disease. He sent his word and healed them. Psalms 107:20. The word is the statements of truth which come to us when we form a better concept of God's ideas which are coming to our spiritual selves. Whosoever sins ye remit, they are remitted unto them. The verse continues, and whosoever sins ye retain, they are retained. John 20:23. This means that when we see a man sinning, it is our false concept of God's man. We are sinning because we retain the sin in our mind. We are blaspheming. If we stop our blasphemy and know the truth clearly enough, that whosoever is born of God sinneth not, that wicked one toucheth him not, 2 John 5:18, instantly he stops sinning. Thirdly, you can get yourself or anyone else out of any trouble under the sun. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. Luke 12:31. Think only of the world of reality. It is only a question then of how soon the trouble disappears. Every time you reverse your thought, there is a permanent improvement in the so-called human or carnal mind, which is then less susceptible to the thoughts causing the trouble. The eternal God is thy refuge, and underneath are the everlasting arms. Deuteronomy 33:27. Fourthly, sooner or later you must obtain perfect peace of mind and happiness, for to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Romans 8:6. You will then understand the meaning of the words, the peace of God which passeth all understanding. Philippians 4:7. And that was chapter 4, Deny Thyself and Follow Me. Join us next time for chapter 5, How to Pray. See you then.